Alrighty. So I'm trying to see if it is picked up. Do you have it on your
You got it live.
Yeah, I know. I meant to. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Me
let's
too.
go. All right, here we go.
Hold on. What? I told you, get what you want to drink. You got Capri Sun. You got Gatorade. Where you
Oh,
where you where you hosting this from? Kindness deserves it.
from Grateful with more work to do.
All right, rock with it.
All right. Good afternoon or good evening, rather. It is Grateful with More Work to Do. I'm your girl, Kemba White-Dupree, and joining me for a series of conversations is Dr. Brian Turner. And today we will be having conversations about happily married, which I am married, or happily single, which he is single. We're trying to foster some conversations around relationships between men and women, or even other relationships and how we relate to each other, because I think we're all missing the mark when it comes to how this relationship thing is going to go. So go ahead, Dr. Turner. Let the people know who you are.
Hey y'all, what's up? Good evening. Good evening. So I'm Brian Turner, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist as well as professor of psychology. Been doing therapy with couples almost 20 years, which I don't think I look it, but I'm glad to say I have that kind of work in this field. So, um, what I think we're about to do is address some of the elephants in the room, skeletons in the closet, and bones underneath the bed. So I don't know who's gonna show up though. I have these alter egos. It's either Dr. Turner speaks or it's the Hood Head Doc. So I'm gonna say right now, let me do this properly. I don't know what's gonna be brought to you, but we're gonna let the evening be what it's gonna be.
Yeah, we're gonna let the evening be what it's gonna be. So some of these conversations, or the whole premise of this show, or this conversation, had to do with the fact that I'm watching you and all the rest of my friends going, y'all doing this wrong. Like, dating should not be this hard. But as we continue the conversation, it's hard because people make it hard. And I mean, I've been out the game for a long time. I mean, I've been married 19 years. Kamara and I have been together for 21. So, what was the type of dating, or the things that were the expectation of dating, has definitely shifted a bit. But the basics of it are still the same, but people making it hard. And again, y'all doing it wrong.
Well, so let's if we start at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Dating right now in 2023, and I can say this: happily single does not mean I wouldn't want a relationship. I'm not looking for a relationship. It means that I am not dreadful. I'm not, you know, unfulfilled. And I think that's the first part, right? Is that you actually have to start with making sure that you're a whole person yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough, right? That's tough for a lot of people because that means you have to work on unlearning, undoing, and sometimes rebuking yourself with the way you approach relationships. So, whether it's a man or a woman, our reality is that when I see memes like the dating pool has pee in it, well, that's because like we keep peeing in it, right? All of us.
Yeah.
It's not like somebody else peed in the dating pool and then you just showed up. Like we've contributed to that, each one of us, right? Through our past relationships and through situations we've been in where we didn't necessarily do the right thing. But let's start at home, right? So when we jump off this series, my first thing is let's talk about what it is we do individually. So my question for anybody who wants to know about dating is like, what have you done prior to the relationship you're trying to be in to ensure that you're a whole person?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I think there's been a selling of a dream to, I think, Americans. I can't just say to men or to women that you're supposed to find somebody to complete you. But if you're not a whole person entering into a relationship, that relationship is not really ever going to be complete, because it's always going to be a part of you missing from it, because you're not a whole person. And then when you're not a whole person, you have two broken people trying to mesh and merge their lives together, and that never really quite works out. So
Yeah.
yeah, I am curious about like what does that look like for you? What does that look like for people who you talk to who are single? Is it still the you complete me goal, or what's the expectation?
Well, but I think that's the point, right? Is that people have not set their goals, right? It's when I'm looking at any point in time, if if I expect someone else to meet my needs for myself, then that means I'll be disappointed, right?
Say
If
more
that,
about
and
that.
that's if I mean if I expect you to always go give me something to eat, well, you could just not be there one day, and if I don't eat, now I'm mad at you when I could have easily learned how to get up and fix my own food, right? Or I should be able to manage when you're not around.
Hmm.
So instead of waiting till I get into a relationship with someone and then I have my needs met, I need to know what I need first and foremost for myself. Do I like am I a morning person, right?
Uh-huh.
I can't be mad if I get with someone and then I realize they're a morning person and I'm not. That doesn't
So
make
that bring
sense, right?
you said something that triggered me to or triggered this thought about gender roles, right? So you're saying this person to person, but some people are still caught up in the idea of what woman's work is and what men's work is. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, and so this goes into that point too of like the question that we often hear about. I want a traditional relationship, right? Well, the dynamics that created what we probably understand or what most people assume to be a traditional role or traditional relationship is very rare now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're honest about then what that means about gender roles, it means that there should be some pretty concretized like paths, right?
Mm-hmm.
And decisions that are made. Well, the dynamics now with dating is such that like, well, men don't necessarily need a wife, and we're being heterocentric, right? Don't necessarily need a wife to cook. A lot of men know how to cook, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of men have learned how to clean their homes, right? A lot of men have learned how to do a lot of the things that we would have thought to be in a traditional relationship would have been gender roles relegated to a woman,
Uh-huh.
and then vice versa. A lot of women have learned how to do a lot of things that in traditional relationships, gender roles have been relegated for men. So a lot of women know how to fix a flat tire. A lot of women know how to take care of things around the home, or they've learned how to manage, right? Whether it be calling a handyman, having an uncle, a friend, a brother, someone who could assist in those situations. So first and foremost, a lot of people I think ascribe to the thought of having a traditional relationship based upon parameters that no longer exist. So if I want to say that I'm the man and you have to do what I say, well, bro, you got to be able to pay the cost to be the boss, and that ain't
Yes.
always money, right? That ain't always money. So if you can't fulfill the role that you say you want, and that's either way, right? As a woman, if you say you're gonna take care of your man, but if it comes to intimacy, if you haven't found out what he really likes or want, and you're not fulfilling them, then that's the same thing as if you want him to be the financial provider. He can't do it, but you never told him that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So at some point, I hear somebody say all the time, if you cheat, I'm gonna cheat back. Well, that's usually what happens, right? If you
It's
can't
not
fulfill
though.
my need, if you
It's
can't
not
fulfill
though.
my
Not
need,
not in that not in that regard. That is not
but if
what
but
happens.
if you can't fulfill my need and you don't want to and you don't try to me that's akin to cheating. If we're gonna be together and you're supposed to fulfill my needs, and that's what I'm putting because you said gender roles,
Uh-huh.
right? That's
Agreed.
what happens. You're if you're assuming that because we're together I have to fulfill certain roles, then I like to say then I don't want to hear no. No is not in our vocabulary, right? Because when you start telling me no, then I now got to go do what?
But okay, so I'm glad you said that, right? So it's a need. A need is going to be fulfilled regardless. So not we're not talking about desires or wants. A need is something that has to
Right.
be fulfilled. So for sure, you have to eat. That's the need. You need water, right? You need air. You need a safe. You need a place to feel safe, and you need shelter. Those are things that must
No, sex
happen.
is a need.
Hmm.
Sex is a
In
need.
relationships, it is. If you never know what sex is, can it be a need?
Yes. It's
Really?
because it died. Well, first off, sex is needed to perpetuate the species into the future. So, um, yeah, it's a need.
Uh, so like if you never know what you had, I don't know that you know that you should miss it.
Oh, every every human is a intimate person. It's just a matter of
That's the difference though. There's intimate need and then there are needs. So we're talking about basic needs. Basic needs, I don't know that sex is
actually
until you create it.
Maslow said sex is a basic need, is a basic physiological need.
Maybe,
I
maybe
mean,
not.
look, wait.
I
I'm
mean,
gonna give you
within
out.
a relationship, if that is
I'm gonna
something like
give you
so
the out.
within my relationship, yes, sex is definitely it is
Thank
definitely
there
and
we go. There
not
you
just
go.
sex. Good sex is a need. Let me be
so
clear
so
on
so
that.
yes, if you're not in a relationship, sex may be a want at that point because you're by yourself. But if you're in a relationship, sex slash intimacy slash
Intimacy.
love
Yeah.
slash closeness slash
Yeah.
affection is going
Yeah.
to be a need. And here's the kicker, right? And I mean we didn't kind of dovetail, but the point about that is that's why you have to have real conversations about what your needs are. Somebody's asking, um, fulfill a need or define a need. Well, each couple has to define that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So for me, I like to cook, and in my life, my lifestyle allows me to be home early enough and home most days where I can cook. So I've never
Mhm.
asked a partner to cook, right? But if I'm in a relationship and my partner feels like that's something she should do, but we don't talk about it, well then she might get frustrated because she keeps trying to cook, but I keep beating her to the punch, right? And
Uh-huh.
I'm not doing it intentionally, but until we have a conversation to define what that looks like, then we may have some issues, right? So we may
Mhm.
have a problem with that.
Okay, so then that segues us into communication because I think that's what definitely is lost on people relating to each other. They don't communicate well, and that's not just in romantic relationships. That is uh in relationships, or even familial relationships. People not communicating what boundaries they would like to set and what their expectation of within their relationships, which will always cause
Uh-huh.
an issue. So let's speak to that. Hey, my sister is in my big sister is in the chat. Uh and she's like, and even in sister like familial relationships. In my age, I'm 46, right? And so we're in the same age group. There have been times where um I was never given the opportunity to have control of body autonomy. If you
Mm.
were in a group setting or a family setting, you saw uncle or auntie such and such, you were forced to have to hug that person. You know, we don't do that now, right? Kids feel a certain way about hugging this auntie or this uncle. You don't make them do that. But when that was pressed or pushed upon us, that also made us less likely to speak out about when we were comfortable with people, and we would let a lot of
Hmm.
things slide.
Well, and so because Antonisa is talking about lack of communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to one of the things when I work with clients, oftentimes I try to explain the need for us to be honest from the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we've never been taught how to be that, right?
Right.
If you've never been, and you just said it, right, body autonomy, but let's just go to the larger context, autonomous individuals, right? In many ways, and this is one of the things I think within the African American community we've had to face is that we've long been the most compliant people, right? And if you think about it, that compliance was in some ways meant for self preservation, for safety and security, and for just sheer like wanting to make it to the next day.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're honest about it, autonomy is really something that is taught, right? Because when we're born, we're little kids. We depend on other people for so much that we
Correct.
don't usually move into autonomous spaces until later, and so it has to be taught. And so if that's not given, so like communication is about autonomy, right? The ability to say what you feel, and to act in ways that is about self, and not selfish, but about self, right? So when you think about it with little
Mhm.
kids, we teach them you can't just go in the refrigerator and take whatever you want, but we do teach them as they grow up. At some point, you will be able to do that, right? And honestly, to the point, it's like I just want to know what you're going to get because I have to keep an accounting. So when enough of it is gone, I have to buy some more, right? But it's not that I
Right.
don't want you to have it. It's just that I need to keep an accounting of what's available. And so when we talk about relationships now, people fear in a lot of ways being autonomous because they don't want to lose the potential for what they might get, right? If I tell you what I want and you don't want to give it to me, or if you can't manipulate me, then now you can laud some type of power over me, right? So if I say to you I really like you, right,
Uh-huh.
and I really want to be with you, well, now I've
Mhm.
opened myself up and I'm vulnerable. Now you might manipulate me because you know something about me that I've given to you because I felt empowered to say it, right? So I've given up that autonomy by being autonomous, and now I don't know how you might treat me.
That's really loaded.
Yeah, it is. Go ahead.
That's
I
loaded,
don't
and
lost.
I say
Uh-huh.
that it's I say that that way because um hmm, so because we all face this, right? And this comes from expectation and or not want to disappoint the people around us, because that is where we start
Mm-hmm.
lying. So with your parents, if you know that you do something that results in one thing, and you're gonna get praise and or applause for that from your parents, but then you do something that they let you know like they are disappointed in this action. It's not that you're gonna stop doing that thing. You start to lie about doing that thing. So in your communication, you start keeping that because you've been admonished about certain behaviors.
Well, but I don't know if it's that we start lying about it. I think, because once again, let's be honest about it. A lot of kids are the way they are because of their parents. Like I don't think kids just lie to lie. I think they've been taught that lies allow them to um, skirt punishment, right, or to avoid
Mm-hmm.
adverse situations.
Mm-hmm.
So like as Jeanette is saying, like kids from the beginning are very honest. Yes, they are. They do have to be taught tact, but that doesn't mean that they're intentionally being rude. It's that in a lot of ways, and I mean, I think about this with my daughter. I'm teaching her how to be autonomous, right? But I'm also teaching her how to be respectful and sensitive. But at the same time, I'm also reminding her that you don't owe people anything more than what they've earned. So if someone is to be untoward towards you, then you have the right to put them in line, right? Even at her age of 5 years old, 6 years old, right? But I think that's the piece of teaching her now and giving her opportunities to practice, right? So that when she gets older, I won't have to worry about her per se lying to me because we would have created a
Mm-hmm.
relationship and a pattern by which she should be able to access me without having to be afraid of such, right? And like I said, I seen it now almost 20 years in my practice. A lot of kids are the way they are because of their parents. Because parents don't necessarily know how to communicate, right? Like,
Correct.
let's be honest. I don't have to tell my daughter we're not going to McDonald's. Does she have McDonald's money? I'll tell her we're not going to McDonald's because we don't eat McDonald's that often, or McDonald's is not a chosen food and it's a treat. Whereas other parents want to go off and create this like animus about McDonald's. Like, don't do that, right? Because now the child's gonna be like, well, there's something. Well, I mean, we said about a lot of stuff, right? It's alcohol, it's sex, it's certain friends. Just do what I
Mm-hmm.
say. No, like have the conversation. Like, this is why I'm concerned for you with this. And if you are to do this, these are the things that might harm you or might upset me. But hey, if you decide to do it on your own, then understand that that's going to be an autonomous decision you made, and the impact or the outcomes may not be the best you want, right?
Yeah, several different ways to go with that, right? um and we're talking about children, but let's look at that in relationships. When we have people who have been in relationships and the relationships have ended, they found out that this particular behavior did not work in this relationship, so therefore I am going to avoid showing my partner this behavior. Not that I'm going to stop the behavior, but I'm going to keep my partner from seeing this behavior.
Well, yeah, because once again, imagine that. So imagine an adult being scolded.
Mm-hmm.
You can't punish an adult. You can't put an adult on punishment, right? Because I'm an adult. So if you attempt to scold me or punish me, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm just not gonna ever tell you. I know now that that's not something to let you know, right?
Right.
So as adults, right? That's why I say, in many ways, and in psychology, we've now known for a long time that punishment per se does not work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Punishment does not change behaviors. Punishment teaches someone just not to do it or not to get caught doing it.
Correct. It's more
Whereas
and more of the
re-
latter than the former.
exactly, right? So if I'm in a relationship, right, and my partner does something that I disagree with, I should find a better way to reinforce the behavior that I truly want, right? Case in point, if you want flowers, right, I'm not gonna beat my partner over the head. Why you don't bring me flowers? I don't bring me flowers. What I might do is I might bring myself flowers. And when my partner comes in, where'd you get flowers from? Well, I really like flowers, so I bought them myself. But why you didn't tell me? Well, I mean, I said I liked them before, and you never bought them, so I thought maybe you just didn't want to buy them. So now I've planted the seed, right?
Uh-huh.
Because now that my partner knows I like flowers, so when I bring in flowers again, now I'm given a sign. Well, if they like flowers and I like them, maybe I should bring flowers. Now, here's the kicker: if your partner brings flowers, the first time they bring you flowers, what should you do?
Say
You
thank
make a
you.
big,
Show your
yeah.
appreciation.
There you go. Right? You show your appreciation. You show them love. You might give them some reinforcements. Right?
That can
You,
go so many different
that
ways.
it's
And
supposed to
I'm
go
trying
so
to
many
and I'm
ways.
trying to go
Okay.
slow.
Okay.
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 There's
This
so
is not
many
PG.
different ways.
This is rated for grown folks. I don't even
It
know what you call
is.
it. It's not even NC-17. This is for grown folks. Period. Just GF. We're gonna call this show GF. Grown folks rated, right? But think about it. That's the point. Because at the end of the day, if I'm gonna be in a relationship with you, I shouldn't have to guess what my actions will get me. I shouldn't have to guess that if I show you appreciation or love, that it'll be reciprocated, right? Um, yes, friendships, any relationship, right? Actually, friendships are probably the best example of how um, reciprocity works because it also is based upon altruism, right? But all too often, romantic relationships, we don't really practice altruism. We automatically, in today's society, move into relationships looking for a one for one.
Do we? I don't know. I mean, so some people get into relationships to fulfill a need that they lacked growing up, right? And that's when you start seeing the relationships for pay or relationships for an exchange,
Well,
right?
it's transactional. Yeah, it's
There you
transactional.
go. Right. And
Well,
so I
well,
don't know that I don't know that that's everybody's situation because it's not mine. It wasn't mine. And I know other people who that wasn't their makeup.
right. No, no. And once again, just not an absolute position, but think
Mhm.
about it. In the early stages of formation and relationships, you're working that out.
Mhm.
You're working out, well, what exactly is our relationship based upon? Is it based upon true love, affection? Is it based upon like our ability to meet each other's needs? What will be the foundation, right? Many ways I talk about relationships being one or two ways, if not both. Either they're functional or they're structural, or they're functional and structurally sound, right? When they're functional, they actually do what they're supposed to do, right?
Okay.
So if I build a house, but that house doesn't have any doors or windows, well, it's still a house, right?
Yeah.
It's just structurally a house. It has a roof, it has walls, it has a foundation. Structurally, it meets what you would expect for a house, but it's not functional. I can't get in it. And that's how some relationships are, right? People offer you a relationship, but you can't get in it.
Ooh,
Or you get
child.
into it, or you get into it, and there's two stories in the house, but there's no stairs that you
To
can
get
use to
up
get to
to
the second
access.
story. or
Yes.
you go to the bathroom and the water doesn't work, or you go in the kitchen and the stove doesn't work. So once again, am I in a functional relationship or am I not a structural relationship? Or is it both? And what most people are aspiring to is, like you said, they're aspiring for both. I want a relationship that actually looks like a relationship, and
Hmm.
I want one that actually functions like a relationship. But
Absolutely.
why? But that goes back to the point, which is we're not taught how to do that. Or, and we talked about this last night, right? Based upon when, where, and how we meet some people, we're trying to figure out, is this a transactional relationship or is it transformational, right? Because if you're just throwing your ass in the air and you just dancing and you singing
Or
songs
throwing your
about
wallet.
sex, or you throwing your wallet in the air and you just
Uh-huh.
talking about what you can do for me, well, I don't really know beyond this just being a structural relationship, right? Because you're just giving me the structure. We're going to meet, we're going to eat, we're going to bump uglies, and then we go home, right? Or we'll do this for a couple years, have some kids, and then we'll realize that this ain't really what we want from each other in
Yes.
terms of a relationship. So we move on, right? But that's why when we talk about it, I go back to for us to start this off, I ask people, think about what you have done to be prepared for the relationship you say you want. If look, and once again, being heterocentric, so for the conversation, right? But regardless,
Because we
if
are
you
going to
are
have
going to go,
conversations
yeah,
that are not
but
just hetero conversations. Yeah.
okay, Angela, that's the question. How you set the foundation. So here it is, right? So you have to understand what you're bringing to a relationship and what you're asking for from a relationship, right? If I'm bringing to the relationship, I mean, and once again, we'll play into the traditional role thing, right? So if I'm
Hmm.
a man and I'm thinking I'm bringing to the relationship my ability to be traditional, the provider, protector, that kind of thing, right? If that's what I'm buying into, then I have to understand that, right? So that means if I'm in a relationship and my partner is not financially do as well as I do, then when she asks me for money, I can't laud over her and make it seem like she has to do something extra to do what I
To
said I
get.
was going to do,
Yeah.
right? So if we need a new car, if you say, look, that babe, I need money for this, then there shouldn't be a, well, I don't know if I want to take care of that for you, right? But that's what people do. They will
Mhm.
use their position of power to
Yeah.
manipulate,
And so you see
right?
that, you've seen that heavily, which is why a lot of women are like, are are adamant about being in the workforce and having their own, is because they see that women that have been traditional housewives or being the stay-at-home person, a caretaker, that has been the leveraging of, well, I take care of everything, so therefore, you got to do what it is that I have to do. And after seeing your mother and your grandmother deal with that, this generation of women, definitely my generation of women, are like, hell no. I'm not dealing with that. I'm always have my own, because in case you show your ass, I'm always have my own to be able to work it, and move
Right,
along. When you said
right.
that you wanted to take care of me, and so therefore
That
I
was
put
the
down, that was the agreement. But now you're reneging on the agreement and saying like, all right, well, I am doing this and I'm doing that. So now, and
right,
at that point,
right.
it's like, nobody, I'm not your child, I'm your partner.
So that's why I say go back. You cannot scold your partner in a relationship because just like a child, children don't like to be scolded, right? So how do you come? First thing you have to do, you have to know what you're bringing to a relationship, what you're truly asking for, right? I think a lot of people tend to be more adept at defining what they want from the relationship than they are what they're bringing. And here's why I say this way because I really reacted when Steve Harvey had his reel going around talking about, if you're a real man, you shouldn't be asking women what they bring to the table, blah 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 blah, right? Well, here's the problem. Everybody don't come to the table wanting the same thing. Everybody don't come to the table wanting a relationship. Some
Hmm.
people come to the table and they just want a snack. Some people come to the table, they just want dessert. Some people come to the table and they just come to look and see what's on the table to determine if they really want it. So they go see what's on the other table and decide if they want what's on the other table, or maybe they
But
want
they
two
don't always
tables.
communicate. So they don't always communicate that.
Well, but that's why it becomes keen for each individual to determine when you're going to take this trek, how far do you go before you make whatever decisions you're gonna make about being in a relationship, right? And to the point, I think a lot of people avoid having that conversation. As Anthony said before, it's the communication piece, right? I'm not gonna sit here and not ask you the questions that I need to know to determine how invested I want to be in this. I'm not gonna not. I'm sorry. Like I try not to ask as much in depth now. I was told I'd be scaring people, right? Excuse me, but I gotta know how your past relationships went. Not because I want to know what y'all was doing in the bedroom, but I want to know. Well, tell me, what did this person do that you liked? What did they do
Yes.
that you didn't like? Where do you feel you were successful? Where do you feel you could have been better? What are you doing differently to be in your next relationship? And once again, these are the things when the question is asked, how you set the foundation. I think people don't want to be truly introspective about this stuff. People don't want to really look at themselves, right? We'll look at everybody else, right? Once again, we'll be able to see the forest and all other wrong stuff other people do, right? But that one lone tree that is me, I'll miss it, right? I don't want to, and that's why I can say I'm happily single because I've been doing that work. That I can sit and say, you know what, before I get into a relationship, I got to make sure that I'm meeting all of the things I need to do so that when I go into a relationship, I can be a completely whole autonomous, right, individual that's trying to be in a relationship because that's the other key part. People think, oh, we're about to be one person. No, you ain't. You about to be two people in one relationship. You can't be one person. You have your own experiences that one day you might not like somebody what they do, and you need to be able to talk about it. I can't just accept that my partner does something and be silent about it and be mad about it, right? I might
Yeah.
just say, hey, babe, look, you did this. Let's talk about it.
So that's a couple of different places that so for starters, self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
self-accountability. Because oftentimes, even if I bring you because we talk about when I have disagreements with other people, and I may not want to look at and examine like where I may have taken a wrong turn or may have like misspoken, but in order for me to get a real solution, I, begrudgingly or not, I do face like, yeah, I could have said that better, or yeah, I could have said this a different way. We don't have a lot of people who want to do that or do that in general, which is
Right.
very it's off-putting because you are asking and demanding something of somebody else that you're not willing to do yourself, and that is so problematic.
Woo, woo, woo. Look. Here go my joke. Here go my joke. Right. So when I was in Mississippi, the young woman I dated, bless her soul, she passed away. Right. We
Mm-hmm.
had a little interaction because I get to the house. I hadn't been. She had been coming to my house, my apartment, a couple of days in a row, and I hadn't made it to her apartment. So I get over there, and the trash is overflowing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
She says to me, "I was waiting for you to take it out." And I was like, so you mean to tell me you let this nasty ass trash sit here waiting for me? I was like, first and foremost, that's disrespectful, right? Because now you're relegating me to a task.
Uh-huh.
And I'm a whole lot more than a task. I said, I have no problem taking the trash out. I was like, but who took the damn trash out before me and you got together? Me. So now all of a sudden your ass can't take the trash out because we're in a relationship? I was like, come on, man. I was like, that would be like me saying that I'm not ever going to cook now, right? Because I'm in a relationship with you. I was like, that would just be that's like that's stupid, right?
Yeah.
I was like, don't
You
ever do
could
that
you couldn't
again.
name it anything else.
Right.
You couldn't
I
name
was like,
anything
don't ever
else.
do that. Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, at the very least, just take the damn trash out. Right.
Right.
I was like, because and this is what we do, people, right? And that's why when we go into relationships, we have expectations of people that they don't even know that we have of them. We ain't even started to tell them what we expect. And then when something go wrong to the question, then we walking around mad because they ain't done something we ain't even told them we wanted them to do.
And they
Right?
have no
Or
idea.
right. And instead of saying, hey, this is what I expect, or even to this point, this is what I either need from you, this is what I want from you, this is what I would like to have from you. But that's why the other piece, I'm gonna come back to it because the day that's kick us off, though, my point is simple. Have you done the work to understand what you're bringing to the table and what you're truly asking? Because if you can't do that, right, then that's going to set us up for failure, right? When I've tried to date women, and at 45, you're right, we're in the same age group, right? And
Hmm.
and we and what I thought too, I think we should let folks know that this is also the outgrowth of our friendship, our camaraderie, our love for each other, our families.
Yeah.
Your husband and daughter and son, and my daughter and me. and our friendships and our friend groups, right? And so we just always have these wind up having these conversations. But we also started this really honestly at a pool party where we started talking about relationships and dating, and we was listening and hearing. It's like, you know what? Let's have this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that like we hit on a lot of opposites. You've been married for almost 20 years. I've not
No,
been
almost
married.
20.
I have,
We're at 19. It's coming.
all right, y'all been together a long
It's
time. Whatever,
coming.
that's a long time, right? You have two kids. I have a daughter. You know, we've had different career paths. You've like changed careers like 4 times. I haven't. Like we just have no, but we have these opposites. But we come to a meeting point, right? That is like brothers and sisters in this space that we really reflect, and we kind of you help me a lot, right?
Yeah.
You help me see a lot,
And
right?
vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's the point, right? Is that like people would say, "Oh, this doesn't look right." Well, no, I need sisters to help me be a good father, right? To help me be a good man, to help me be a good person. And
Mm-hmm.
so the conversations have been born out of our interactions that, like, you know what? If we're having this conversation, other people are either having a conversation, trying to have the conversation, or they need to have the conversation, right? And so tonight, really, what we have been talking about a lot is like, well, why don't people prepare themselves to be in a relationship, right? Because what'll come out of this is why don't people prepare themselves sexually, right? Intimately, right? Once again, at 45, I know everybody's not going to probably have had all the sexual experiences that they've wanted. But at 45, if you can't even talk about it,
Right.
what you want, what you like, what you
Which are,
might like, what you know you
yes.
don't like, then
Yes.
we gonna have problems,
Yeah.
right? If you want to travel, but you don't have a passport, but we get into a relationship and now you want me to do all the work. Well, unless we have a conversation about how we'll make that happen. But then again, am I supposed to pay for everything, right? Are you just supposed to show up? That's why when we talk about stuff like that, right? Passport me, vacation me, right? I'll be honest. I think that's why a lot of women wind up, and correct me, but I'm gonna say it this way as a man. I think that's why a lot of women wind up going on vacations and trips with their friends or by themselves because we don't have the conversations about how to get there together.
That's not why.
That's figuratively, no, that's figuratively and literally,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the conversation about how to get there together. We'll talk about it, about how where we want to go, but we don't actually say like, "Hey, how do we actually make this happen?" And I'm just using that as like a euphemism for like relationships. As because here's the thing: me and my partners, when we plan a trip, okay, what day is the trip? All right, when you got to pay the deposit. All right, look, get your flight, drive, whatever you got to do, get to this destination, blah, blah, blah. We good. Women do the same thing. But when it becomes male female relationships trying to do it, we don't have that same level of communication. And that's the question. Why not? Why can't we have the same level of conversation that we have in our in groups about how we do things that we should have in our out groups?
So, so many different things that I want to say about that because even in familial or friendship relationships, we still, because of the admonishment that we get as young people, there's some things that we won't say to our friends, right? I am a different kind of person. I'm gonna go ahead and pull a trigger, and you can be mad at me, but I've said what it is that I needed to say to you so that I am not hurting myself by holding that in, and so you are aware, and I don't explode on you later because at some point it's gonna come out. I'm gonna be angry. I'm gonna be frustrated at the point of you not being aware what it is that in the need in our relationship that I need. And so if I don't communicate it to you and I'm afraid to communicate it to you, I am holding myself hostage because I'm afraid of what it is that you're going to say or how you're going to feel as it relates to me. But in romantic relationships, that happens all the time. That happens all of the time because you've had a negative experience or a negative you've had you've gotten some sort of rebuke, and so therefore you don't say what it is that you need to say or that you want to say to your partner or tell them that this is an expectation of yours, so
Uh
you
huh.
just sit there and just kind of hold it until you can't hold it anymore, and that is not healthy for either because one, the person who you're in relationship with is unaware that they're not meeting your needs, and you are sitting there holding your breath hoping that they're
Uh
going to
huh.
fix it. And that is I've noticed, like, even in my friendship relationships, I have gotten to the point that you could be mad at me, that's okay, and I respect my friendships when they say, you know what, Kimber, You're out of pocket, and you can be mad about it, but this is something that you need to hear. We have to push back the comfortability of being able to communicate with people honestly, and if we want to see change, because otherwise we're just sitting back and just like, I'm gonna let you roll. I'm gonna let you roll here. I'm gonna let you roll there until I've had enough, and I'm gonna be out.
Hmm. So Anjanette asked the question: what should you do if your partner deceives you and you find out after you're 100% in? Well, first off, you need to decide before what's your deal breakers and what's your deal maker,
Yep.
right? Because if you're waiting, and not that you should be looking for the downfall, but you have to be honest with yourself about what thing. And I say there should only be one thing that a person should do that you should be willing and able to walk away from, right? And that should be the most egregious thing, the most disrespectful thing, the most I can't take this thing in the world, right? But whatever you decide, right, whatever that thing is that truly um unnerves you, you have to be honest with yourself about it, right? Now, once again, as we've gotten older, and I'll be transparent, as I've gotten older, I've had to really think about that idea of like infidelity, right? Because the whole thing is what men can't handle if their female partner cheats, right? If their woman partner cheats, right?
And
And
if
so
you
I've
cheat
had to
on
think.
me, I'm gonna cheat back.
So if I can't handle that, right, then I have to be honest with myself. But I should tell my partner that. I should be able to tell my partner, look, I can handle you doing anything but this thing right here. If you do this thing right here, then just know I'm out, right? For me, my biggest thing is integrity. That's inclusive of infidelity, because my thing would be this. I would like to think that I try to maintain open communication so that my partner can tell me at any point in time, hey, Brian, you not laying it down right, right? If she tells me that, that means either I have a health issue, I have an interest issue, whatever it might be. So I either have to pick up the ball and get better at it, or if it continues, she can say, hey, look, I've given you space, I've tried to work with you. We need to figure out what's up, right? So for me, that's the part about how we have to define how we're going to deal with those moments of being let down by a partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't wait. We're not the United States judicial system where you wait until a person is arrested, then you take them to jail, then you have to convict them. We're people.
Right.
Like just the like sheer thought of infidelity or something that's a misgiving can set us off. But you have to be aware enough as an individual to be able to say, look, I need to be honest with you, right? These things I don't like, right? Um, so I don't believe in cutting my ringer off. Like I know people set their phones that at a certain time the ringer goes off, but I'm cool with that. But I don't do it, right? So I was dating somebody and leave my phone on because we're dating, but also at the point we got to the point where I had stopped dealing with other people, right? So when she would come over, the phone is on the charger. That's it. So one morning she got up, had a funky attitude. What's wrong with you? Your phone just don't stop going off all night. Well, what happened? Because I was asleep, right?
Right. 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 Right.
Did somebody call? Did I miss something? No, I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I don't know who it is texting. I said, well, why would it matter, right? You're here, right? And I was like, so I'll play this game. So I said, you could look and see. No, I don't want to look and see. I said, well, so then something ain't right. If you're upset about it, and I'm trying to
If
show you that
somebody
there's something
offers
you're
you to go
concerned
look
about,
and see, go look and see. Stop
right?
playing that
So,
game. Cause then you still
so what
mad,
I
but you mad because you don't know, but you don't know because you didn't go
well, now
look.
you don't
You
want to
got the
find out,
offer.
right? So here I go. I said, well, check this out. I said, one, all of my emails come to my phone, right? From work, personal, private practice. That's three different email systems, right? I said, I don't have a problem getting text messages. I'm signed up for like alerts from my bank account. If I get a deposit, if something goes out, right? Those are all text message alerts, right? I was like, then I have friends on different coasts. So it's midnight here, but somebody in California, it's still 8 o'clock. So if they text me, but I've gone to bed, I might miss it. I was like, so let's not manufacture outrage, right? And then when we have the opportunity to resolve it, then we choose not to resolve it,
Right.
right? So that's another thing that I would say too for couples and going into this. You got to figure out what's the way that you're going to fight, argue, or resolve problems, right? Now, of course, the thing is you got to fight fair, right? It's just like in a boxing match. Before you get into a boxing match, they tell you all of the rules. Well, if you get into a relationship and you and your partner haven't discussed how y'all are gonna argue, fight,
Hmm.
or resolve issues, then nobody knows how to get to the conclusion, right? Because in
Right.
a boxing match, it's single, it's simple. You either got to get more points than the other person, or you got to knock their ass out.
Correct.
It
Correct.
ain't that you can take a break and then wait. Hear the rules, and the same thing applies in relationships. You have to be willing to tell your partner what it takes to resolve conflict so that you can be happy.
So, but with relationships and with arguing in relationships, a lot of people argue to win, and you can win the argument and you can win that war, but also lose your relationship in the same breath. And a lot of people in their lives, they're not winning enough, so in a relationship they got to win that argument. You got to be aware of that, because you can, like, again, I can tongue lash very well. I mean, I can say some shit and break you down, but at the end of it all, after I've said all of those ugly and hurtful things, do I expect for you to be want to hug on me and you know what I'm saying? That ain't a turn on. So
No,
we have to figure out how to argue fair, how to argue and with the problem, and not argue
the
and
individual.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's us
Yeah.
against the issue. It's not me against you. Now we can have different sides, but if we're going at each other like this, that's not a win for either of us.
And I think that goes so once again, laying the foundation for how we're doing this, right? What have you done to be prepared to be in a relationship? These are the things that I remind couples, like when I work with couples pre-marriage or like right after getting married and we do the work or how do we move forward. Like this is all the stuff I would say. And this is real Dr. Turner speaks tonight. Ain't no hood head doctor tonight, apparently, right? But this is the stuff that you have to think about, right? So like in our relationship, what are we working on, right? Like even to the point of what do we as a couple have as goals, right?
Uh-huh.
um are we looking to buy a house, right? And to that point, what I oftentimes give couples in the early work is to determine the three stages of the relationship. Are they looking at each other for potential? Are they looking at each other for presence, like you
Like,
being in my life,
yes,
but are you a gift?
yeah.
Or are you looking for partnership, right? And when you think about it, early in life, we find ourselves dating, wanting relationships based upon potential. This person one day will be this, or we will be this one day, right? And that's cute. That's the puppy love. That's the teenage love thing, right? Because we see all of this goodness and greatness in this individual that we hope one day will manifest itself, right? The
Right.
next one is presence, and present meaning you being in my life is a gift, right? You and I, we work well together. It's fun. It's enjoyable, right? And you help me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the relationships that oftentimes can last 5, 10, 15 years. They can produce a lot of good things, but they're oftentimes also an imbalance,
Yeah.
meaning that only one person is usually able to give the gifts that keep coming, right? If I'm the breadwinner, right? That means I'm usually able to give gifts and give gifts, right? But what happens the day if the gift giver decides, well, I want a gift, right? And if the gift receiver isn't able to reciprocate that gift giving, now there might be a discovery in a relationship that things ain't necessarily equal, right? And that's usually where couples end in divorce, right? Um, because now we're having issues about, well, why are you in my life and what do you bring to my life,
Uh-huh.
right? And then the last one is partnership. And this is when we usually see lifelong relationships, right? This is where we see the 50 and 60 relationships. This is what we see as people like that is why we don't have relationships like our grandparents. Well, because you motherfuckers ain't looking for partnerships. Y'all
Period.
just be looking for gifts. And the partnership, which once again, and this is key, the partnership don't mean that you the CEO. The partnership means that you agree to whatever the parameters are for this relationship to be so you can get your needs met. You might only be a manager and the other partner might be the CEO. But if you accept that, as long as your needs are being met, whatever, right? So that's kind of get into that space of if we're talking about it, you got to decide like how you gonna move in your relationship. What are you going into a relationship for? Um, I think we also have to be clear about why do people get into relationships, right? Some people get into relationships because it means I could cut some of these bills.
Now, period, hard stop, okay? Because we start writing again in the fall where I gotta get this book written. And so that is a part of like what type of relationship configuration do you want? Right? Do you want a co-parent? Do you want to cut your bills? Are you bored? Are you tired of being alone? Because alone and lonely can look different. You can feel lonely even in a relationship, or even feel alone in a relationship. And flipping that, the expectation of what you're expecting to get from this relationship, because the cutting the bills one seems to be like at the top. I kid you no lie. And I understand it, but if you get into a relationship for one specific thing, once that is met, that's it.
Right. And so you said something that I'm gonna play with, right? The conceptualization of alone versus lonely. Alone is a physical space, right? Like I'm alone in this room, but I'm not lonely because if I wanted people to come over, if I want to call and talk to someone, we get off, right? I can do that. Lonely is an emotional space, right? I'm alone in this room, but I'm not lonely. But I could be in
Right.
a room full of people and I could be very much lonely, right? I may not be connected to anyone. And that's why a lot of times in relationships, I think people who are not defining their motivations, their reasons for being in a relationship, get into relationships and they feel both alone and lonely, right? It's the proverbial picture of the man or woman sleeping in the bed next to their partner. Their partner is happily asleep and they're over there, they can't sleep and they're not sure why. It's because their needs are not being met, but they don't know how to
Hmm.
talk about it, right? Or it's the fact that they get up every day, get dressed, and go to work, but then they get home and they don't feel connected to their partner while their partner's having a good time. Or they go somewhere with their partner's the life of the party and engaged and involved, and they're resentful, right? And we have to be honest about the fact that I don't need to be the star all the time, right? And I've had to be honest about that myself with partners that yes, Dr. Turner can be invited to places and do things, but that's not a relationship construct, right? That's a part of my career. That's part of my professional identity. But I want you here with me because I want to be able to dance with you. I want you to be a part of this event. And then afterwards, like I want to go home with you, right? So if you feel lonely or alone while you're out with me, tell me because if you don't want to come to the event, I'd rather you say that,
Right.
right? I'd rather you be able to say, yeah, babe, I'm not in the mood tonight. I don't want to be bothered. So that when I do come home or we meet somewhere after, and we do our thing, right? But the point for the night was for me to really nail down the fact that people have to be honest about what they bring to the relationship and what they're trying to get from the relationship. Because all too often people are very good at defining what they say they want, but not knowing what they bring in.
I think
Or
they know though. I think they know. They just, regardless. I mean, even if they know and they know when they come up short, they're not willing to own it. It's the awareness or the willing to acknowledge it. I really feel like that's what it
well,
is. Like the willingness to
well,
acknowledge is the problem. Hey,
well,
Tamasha.
I think the audience tonight has agreed that most people don't be wanting to tell the truth. And I've been saying that because I think a lot of times people know what they bring and they know they're not bringing what they really should. And so that's the manipulation, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm only bringing 3 out of 5, right? But
But I'm
but
gonna
I'm
say,
gonna tell this
but I'm gonna
person
say,
this.
I'm just like people on like on their resume. I don't know how to do all these things, but I knew how to do most of these things. I'm gonna go ahead and send this resume anyway because I'm gonna learn
Right,
on the job.
right. Right. Or it's the whole point of applying for the job knowing you don't meet qualifications, but hoping you at least get an interview, right?
Yeah.
Well, then the question is, so what do you do once you get hired, right? If you apply for a job to be a pilot, well, they might expect you to fly a plane on day one, right? So what you
Hmm.
gonna do? And you can only BS your way through some things because at some point in time, maybe I am willing to be the co-pilot in a relationship, right? And if I'm going to be the co-pilot, that's fine. But what happens when I say, "Hey, I need you to take over the stick, right? I need you to take over controls." And if you haven't paid attention or prepared yourself, and we crash, well, there's no debate now. What happened, right? You didn't tell the truth. That's the question I was asked earlier, right? How do we deal with that, right? So if you've deceived me, then that's something we're gonna get to because we're gonna talk about cheating, right, in a future episode. But that's the setup, right? is that I need to be honest with my partner. Like, hey, you say, can you really do this? Right. Well, here's your out. Right. Let's have real conversation. Let's really communicate about it. Oh yeah, definitely. We're gonna talk about parent-child relationships in the future because those definitely impact how we date and relationships. Because you got to be honest. Like, I do agree with something Steve Harvey said that I don't think you should wait until you're ready to marry somebody for them to meet your kids. Right. That's too late.
Oh, so I have so many things about that because dating and you've been in a relationship for a year and your kids have never met this person, I really think is weird. But that's a whole conversation for
Yeah.
future
Yeah.
episodes because at some point you're gonna have to integrate them into your family. And if you want some um non adversarial interactions, you can't
Hmm.
wait till nine.
You in love and y'all planning the
Yeah,
wedding,
because
and
your
then
children
the
have to
kids.
be able to adjust to
Uh huh.
seeing your mood change and your excitement, and
Right.
they have to be able to navigate into falling in love there too. And I
Right.
say and
Right.
I say that from being married and not having that. I've never had that
Experience. Yeah.
interaction. I don't know what that is like, but I can imagine that that does not go well, and it has not gone well for quite a few people that I have seen. Like
Yeah.
relationships go zoop, 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 zoop. You add the kids to it, and it's a whole different situation by waiting,
Yeah.
that late to add them to the mix.
Yeah. 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 So, and that's what I say. I think once again, trying to set the stage, thinking about what are you bringing to the table, and once again, that ain't just money, that ain't just sex. It's like, what are you bringing to the table emotionally? What are you bringing to the table from a family style? Right. I've had this say in past relationships, family is really important to me. Right. So I have to be very open. I tend to be a family centered home, right? My family tends to come here. I tend to want family to come here, right? So
Mhm.
if I'm dating someone and they're not big on family, then I need to understand, like, okay, well, if I'm doing Fourth of July here, if I'm doing Juneteenth here, if I'm doing a crawfish ball, um, how does that
What's the
go,
move? Yeah,
right?
what's the move? What's the
Yeah,
play?
like
What's our
how does
happy
that go?
medium? Because I'm gonna be
Right,
honest with
right.
you, like Kamara is I'm very cautious about places that I put him in because I'm the social person. It's not that he
Mhm.
won't interact with people, but he definitely is not like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? He'd be like, all
Right,
right,
right.
to the people that he want to talk to, and then that's it. And I know that
That's it.
about him, so I don't force him into that. And over the years, I know how to move and navigate that space with him, and especially like with this recent shove into in the media world. There's certain things I don't even buy. I'll let him know about, but I don't invite him to because
Right.
that's not his arena, right? And that's cool. So you have
And
to
when did you
respect.
learn that about him?
Oh, when we were dating,
So that was before what? Y'all got
that was
married.
before we
So
got
y'all had
married.
those conversations.
Yeah,
Y'all
that
had
he
that
don't like
communication. Y'all
everybody.
got that understanding. Right.
Yeah.
But y'all got all that understanding understood. Not that every situation was determined then, but you all
Right.
laid the foundation so that as y'all move forward, if he say, look, not cool with this, or hey, this is how I'm gonna move for this, you was like, okay, babe, I get it, right? And you didn't have to
Mhm.
question his desire to be with you. You understood that that was who he was. But that didn't take away from the relationship y'all had. That just meant in these spaces how he was. And I'm pretty sure that you have your stuff too. That he's
Yeah.
like, that's how my lady moved, and I'm
Y'all know
cool
I'm
with
a
that.
all the stuff I post, I don't mean I'm going through, but at some point or another, I probably have said some stuff that I do post. And that's why I put it like that's why I put things out there
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, it's okay to express how you feeling. It's okay to let people know that you're uncomfortable with what's going on, and you cannot pigeonhole yourself into it because once you do that, that's the expectation that this is what you're comfortable with. This is what you're okay with.
Mm-hmm.
And when you decide one day that you're going to violently shove your relationship or yourself or your partner into a different understanding, everybody's like, well, what happened here? Because I wasn't,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
this a conversation that happened in your head? Because what I knew to be okay is not okay now. And
Right. Right.
communication has a lot to do with that, but not only communication, what is it that you want? Who
So I'm
what
a
about you what's your breaking and what's your desire? Because you got to be honest before you're honest with somebody else. You got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah. So to that point, right? Um, I tell clients you cannot have a conversation with someone about them without them, right? So you going through this whole conversation here, what you gonna say, what they're gonna say, how it's gonna go, but you never had it with them. So then you forgot that that never really happened. So now you're operating under this assumption of the presumptions, and this person still don't know what's going on. So that when something happened, and they ain't even done anything bad, but you've now worked yourself up mentally, emotionally, that anything they do now fits this thing, right? I was in a relationship, and once again, always to be respectful, but I'm also an adult. So I didn't come home until about 4 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's what happened though. Started out with the fellas chilling, kicking, doing our thing. All right, I'm about to head on. Well, look, man, we're gonna hit one more spot. All right, cool. We get to the spot, start smoking cigars, start drinking. Completely forgot what time it was, right? I'm still thinking it's an earlier time period, not to be concerned. I look up, it's 3 o'clock, 3:30. All right, cool. I gotta get home. Get home, whatever. And so the conversation slash argument ensues. I was like, okay, so are you mad because I came home late? Or are you mad because I didn't call? What exactly do you need me to do differently? I just don't think you should stay out late. I was like, well, then that's not okay, right? Because I'm an adult. Staying
Right.
out late is not something I'm um not permitted to do, right? I was like, but what we can talk about is what would you like me to do in situations like that to make sure you feel okay. I was like,
Yeah.
because I wasn't cheating. I wasn't with anybody else. I was like, this is what happened. I was like, this is everything. Here's the receipts, right? Because I don't have a problem providing
With
evidence,
verification,
right?
well, verify or at least checking in because people, and
Right.
I'm gonna jump in right here. During Essence, I had late hours every night, right? And the only night that Kamara was out with me was Saturday night. At some point or another, depending on how long I'm outside the house, I need to say, "Hey, I'm okay. I'm letting you know that I'm good," because he's responsible for me and I'm responsible for him. Not a matter of, hey, can I stay out longer? It's more of, I'm fine. If you were sleeping, go back and do your thing, because partnership or marriage or relationships even does not mean you stop being the adult you were when you got together. But it's
Right.
it's a matter of, you know, are you okay? Are you hurt? Is
Right.
something happening in your area? And if I'm at home and I can't sleep because I don't know, it's not a matter of what you're doing, who you hanging out. I mean, if I'm in my bed, I'm not gonna say I don't care, but I mean, I'm more concerned about being asleep. But we
Yeah.
have to be, we have to really
Right. Right.
consider and break down what that really is of not checking in to checking in with your parent. It's like, I am
Right.
letting you know I am fine. So go.
So the question: would I let my other lady know my location via my phone? If I'm in a married, committed relationship, yes. No, no, I would. And here's why. Here's why. Because if we talk about it and if we decide that that's how we want to roll, yes. But here's the thing: I don't think that's necessary, right? I think once again, for two people, if they decide that's how they want to move, that's fine. Because I think that's the other piece, right? To the homeboy pieces. I think once again, sometimes we succumb to these external pressures about what we should do. I don't think there's a problem if two people in the earth say, look, we're gonna make sure our locations are shared. Ah, that's fine. I may not actually do it. So I don't want anybody to think that they shouldn't do something because what other people should say, right? Do what you feel is going to be right in your relationship. So my point about my example was, as I said to my partner, then I said, look, we've actually never had this conversation, right? She said, what do you mean? I say, well, I've never stayed out this late and you've never stayed. I said, but when you have, I've never said anything because there were times where she would stay out late. And my thing was, I would just say, hey, you good? I'm about to go to sleep. Oh, yeah, I'm cool. I never said you need to come home. I never said that. And I pointed that out to her. And I was like, so think about it. You're now upset because I didn't come home at a certain time. But when I'm pointing out to you how I've been very open and okay in the past with you moving how you want to move, then you're like, but that's different, right? So I was like, so let's have the conversation, right? Let's be honest. What is it that you really want to happen? Do I need to let you know how I'm moving? Do you want me home by a certain time? Like, tell me the things so I can either agree to them or we can find a compromise so that we both have our needs met. And that's why I say come back to what I was trying to lay down. How do we have these conversations before we even get into that? Or how do you lay the foundation so that if there ever is going to be contention, you can say, okay, well, look, babe, here's the rules of how we decided how we're going to talk about things. So, and I want to end on this note, right? So, one of the things I tell people is you got to do with your partner. You have to decide your rules of engagement, right? I've had couples who decided the only way they would have an argument would be unclothed, naked in the bed, right? And here was the point: when you're naked, you can't hide a gun, you can't hide a weapon. It also opens up your vulnerability because now you're raw, you're exposed, right?
Yeah.
I had a
Hmm.
couple who decided the only place they would have tough conversations would be a sofa in a room that they didn't use a lot because they didn't want to necessarily associate negative feelings with the rest of the house. So if
Right.
they had a tough conversation once a year, then it didn't linger in everywhere else, right? So that's the point about it. If we're arguing in the bed, well, we're also supposed to make love and have sex in the bed. But if we're arguing in the bed, now we have these mixed emotions in the bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Don't argue in the car, right? Like because you're in the car so
That's
much.
not safe.
That's the other point, right?
Don't
So
kill
so
us. Kill you,
right,
not me, not us.
right, right. Leave us here. You jump out and keep going, right? But those are some of the things that I think people have to think about, right? How do I build the opportunity to have the relationship I want? And that only happens with a lot of forethought, foreplanning, and kind of foreshadowing, right? You got to know what's gonna make you angry. You got to know what's gonna make you upset. You got to know what's gonna make you happy. So yeah,
Yeah, so this is episode one of Happily Married, Happily Single. Which one are you? I think this is a great launching pad to open conversations on how we relate to one another. Those of you who are not aware and you're on this live, I am Kemba White-Dupree. I host a wake up show on WBOK, and I'm also co host with Graylin Banks on the front porch on WBOK. Dr. Brian Turner is a frequent guest uh, at any point because I call him a lot to bring some reason and to bring some a different voice. Because oftentimes when people hear my points of view, especially because I'm a woman, they don't be ready to hear what I'm saying. But at the same time, I don't know it all, and we have an expert who is a clinical telling people what to do. What you do?
I'm a happily single licensed clinical psychologist, right? And so that allows me to do the work of working with couples and families. Um, and I think once again, our difference, right? I'm always want to point that out in this space that we've kind of come together, not kind of, we've come together because we joke about our differences in our profiles, right?
Mhm,
Being married,
mhm.
being
Be
single,
single. Mhm.
lifestyle, professional, blah blah blah, right? We have a lot of differences, but we come together in so many ways that's just helpful. And so the conversation is based upon what we see. When we step out, we be brothers and sisters, and women don't want to talk to me because they think we're together.
You be like, no, listen, he is single. How old are you? When's your birthday? You got kids? And it's
Is you crazy?
sometimes an odd interaction. Like, why are you asking me this? Because he's single. Him. I'm
Yeah.
the one that's married.
So yeah, so it's the love of it. It's the love of it. But yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, we're gonna pop up. We're gonna keep it rolling, you dig? So yeah, happily very happy single. Which one are you? Because the reality is this: no matter which one you are, you need to be happy.
Absolutely. So y'all tune in next Thursday. We'll be right back at 7 p.m. And we're gonna try to run about an hour. The conversation is really, really good. I was threatening like maybe we should push it further, but yeah, we're gonna come back next week, same time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'd love for you all to tune in. Make sure you share this with your friends, share this with your family, because these are conversations that we need to have. And there are so many more different conversations regarding Black family, relationships, with how we parent. There's so many different more avenues that we're going to take. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate y'all all so much. And we'll see y'all next Thursday at 7 p.m. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. And tune in tomorrow to the Wake Up Show at 6 a.m. on WBOK 12:30 a.m. Peace, y'all.
Much love.